Welcome to the Los Angeles Real Estate Podcast on buying and selling real estate in Los Angeles. Today we're going to be talking all about contingencies. We're also going to talk with Zoe Schulman from Stewart Title and discussing 10 ways to help choose an offer price. Sarah, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Good. It's been a long weekend, but that's always good. I've been busy with work.
Yeah, work's always good.
Work
busy
is good.
with work.
You know, I went to the Ace last night and I saw Jim Jeffries perform.
Yeah.
He was hilarious.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend. I don't go to comedians very often because all my friends think they're comedians.
Oh, my God. Everyone in LA, they all think they're comedians. They all have a damn podcast.
Yeah, I know. Podcasts. God. But anyways,
people.
It was a lot of fun.
That's
Next time you should come.
I love Jim Jeffries. I've seen a couple of his specials on Netflix. I think the guy's very funny.
Yeah, it was a good time. Okay, so let's get into it.
Yes.
Contingencies.
What the heck is a contingency?
Okay, these are my favorite. Contingencies are absolutely my favorite.
I also just want to toot your horn real quick. Toot, toot.
Ooh.
Contingencies is something that Sarah thrives on. It's the strategy and the parlaying of I'll give you a little of this. If you give me a little of that, we're going to make this deal happen.
I love contingencies. And what I love about them is basically contingencies are the Monopoly get out of jail free card. This is the way you can get out of escrow without serious repercussions or losing your deposit.
I remember when we were shopping for my house, it was one of those things. It sounded crazy to me that we could set this up in such a way where I could put in an offer, but then if I just got scared and it just didn't feel right, I could still get out because of contingencies.
Absolutely. So the biggest contingency is the most important is the inspection contingency. This is huge, 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 huge. So when I write an offer for a client, I always recommend inspections. Even if sometimes a listing agent will do inspections ahead of time when they list a property. That's great. That gives you an idea of what's going on. Doesn't matter. Always do your own inspections. Always. And inspections, we usually write in the contingency. It depends on the market. Right now, in an aggressive market, and you're writing offers, and there potentially are multiple offers, we want to write a strong offer. We usually write 10 to 14 days for inspections. And these are calendar days. They're not business days. You also want to make sure you can get a hold of your inspector, get them booked. So that's a huge one. Inspection contingencies, anytime during this contingency, you can walk away from the sale.
So you got 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks that you can walk away. But the kinds of things that a person might get inspected, that's your chimney, that's your roof. If you have a pool, you definitely want to get that inspected. It's almost anything, really.
Absolutely. So we do what I always recommend, and there's some supplemental inspections sometimes, but the biggest one, number one, is your general home inspection. And that inspector will inspect all major systems of your house. So that includes your foundation, right? That's a big one. That could be a super expensive fix if you don't inspect the foundation. Electrical, okay? The roof, your HVAC, which is your air conditioning, and plumbing. So he's going to look at those 5 major house systems. And he's going to crawl in the crawl space. He's going to go up in the attic. He's going to get on top of the roof. At least the good inspectors will.
Right.
You know a good inspector because their fingernails are all dirty.
They've got those real meaty hands, from doing all that manual
dirt
labor.
under their nails.
Yeah, you don't want a really clean inspector.
And they look
tired,
but they also get like a little spark in their eye when you talk about like. You know what the funniest thing that nobody ever does is they label their electrical panel. So like what circuit is for the kitchen, what circuit.
I did.
If an inspector ever sees one that's labeled, their eyes light up like a Christmas tree. It's the funniest thing.
It's important. It's an important thing to do.
It's important. So that's the general home inspection. Okay, now I also always recommend a sewer line inspection.
Oh, yeah.
And what a lot of people don't know is that your sewer line is your responsibility to where it connects to the city sewer. And that could be in the middle of your street.
Yep.
And that is a hugely expensive repair.
Well, and also part of the thing that's crazy to me is old sewer systems are like a heavy-duty, dense sort of clay pipe.
Right.
And so one of the things that I remember when on my house, one of the things that we had to do was we got that inspection and they run a camera through there and like old school pipe, like believe it or not, roots and things like that can grow into your sewage pipe and potentially stop it up.
Absolutely.
Nowadays we'll use like for instance for my ADU when they did the sewage for that, it was a new kind of like heavy duty plastic, I don't know, some sort of thing that and roots are not going to grow into that. But a lot of the older houses in LA have these clay pipes.
Absolutely. And the clay pipes, we do see a lot of damage with the clay pipes. If the clay pipe is in good working order, it can last a really, really, really long time. Where we usually see an issue is where there's a connection. So that's why often the damage, unfortunately, is underneath the street where it's the most expensive to repair because that's where the connection is and the roots grow in through the connection and sometimes they can actually crack the pipe. So sewer line, get it inspected. Also, someone might have put a new sewer line. They say, hey, you know what? You don't have to inspect it. We put a new sewer line in 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. Well, not only that, they might have, and the work might have been done poorly.
Right.
This happened to one of my clients. They bought a house in Altadena, and the seller said, hey, I've got a sewer line repair. We did a bunch of work. We inspected it anyways, and we discovered about $6,000 or $7,000 worth of damage.
Oh, wow.
Because it wasn't done properly the first time. So we actually got the seller to repair that before the close of escrow.
Well, and that's the thing is like if an inspection comes back and they say, hey, this roof, you get to go back and say, we're not even going to think about buying the house until you fix this.
Right. So there's a couple things we can ask for, right? We can ask for them to repair something. We can ask for a price reduction based on what we find. Or we can just walk away. So if something is so scary to you, like a massive foundation issue or a huge plumbing issue, sometimes people don't have the cash to fix it. And sometimes the condition is just so bad that even the house may be dangerous. Somebody wants to walk away. I had a client in escrow on a gorgeous old house. And our inspector discovered that there were thousands of tons of bricks in the ceiling that were not supported. So they'd removed a chimney, didn't brace these bricks. And he said, someone could be walking under here one day and the bricks will crash through the ceiling. I am recommending that you do not buy this house.
Oh, wow.
So, that's a very unusual situation.
A crazy one.
Yeah, but you want to be aware that these things could be issues. So your inspector is there to notice any red flags so that you can skedaddle, get a price reduction, a credit, or get them to fix it.
And the skedaddle thing, I think to me that was the most comforting part is knowing that like, hey, any one of these things, if it bothers me or if I'm just scared, I could back out of buying this house.
Absolutely. And, you're going to be out about $1,000 for inspections, give or take. If you're inspecting a chimney or a pool, which I always recommend, those are going to increase the cost a little. But you're going to get that money back. I mean, you want to know what you're buying.
Absolutely.
You absolutely need to know what you're buying. And also, we recommend a termite inspection, like we've spoken about.
Look, termites, they're looking for homes, too, to live in and eat on. And that's going to be houses in Los Angeles.
Almost every house in LA has some form of termites. There's very few houses in my transactions that have not had termites. It's always surprising when we find one that doesn't. So don't flip out if you see a house with termites. But you want to know how much the damage is, how much it costs, and if the house needs to be tented, which is they cover it in a big tarp, fill it with gas, and kill all the termites.
Well, they fill it with gas, and then they send the termites on a vacation. They let them out of the tent. They throw a little party, and then the termites leave the house.
Yeah, they're all gone. No more termites.
They're all gone. And it's super common in LA. Yeah. It's not something to freak out about.
Yeah, don't flip out. Although, as soon as your house is tented, 3 days later, a termite could fly back in. So,
yeah, it probably will.
Yeah, they probably will. Okay, so we also have, those are our kind of inspection contingencies. Now, we also have an appraisal contingency.
This one's important.
This is really important. So what happens when you open escrow, your mortgage broker starts the loan process, your lender, so the person giving you the money, is going to send an appraiser to the property. They're going to have a look at the property. They're going to give it a value based on a number of calculations that they do to give value based on comparable sales. And they're going to see if there's any major hazards at the house. And the appraisal will get sent to the underwriter, who will check it and say, yes, okay, no, this looks fine. The house looks like it's the person buying it is buying it for a good price. It looks safe. We're good to go. Or they might flag the appraisal and say something like, hey, there's a big deck. It needs handrails. We will not lend you the money on this house until those handrails are put up. And I've had that actually happen.
Part of it is the bank. And it's part of it is these guys doing their due diligence to make sure that it's worth the money they're about to loan out.
Absolutely. They don't want a bad investment. So the appraisal contingency. Now, if the house does not appraise, so say the appraiser goes to the house, you're buying it for $500,000,
and it only appraises for $4.
Yep. Now the bank is going to say, hey, we're not going to lend you all that money. So if you still want this house, you're going to need to come with a lot more cash. Or you can say to the seller, either you lower the price to what it appraised at, or I'm walking away, and you will get your deposit back. So that is the third contingency. We also could write in contingencies based on you potentially having to sell your house first before buying the house. Yeah. There's other contingencies too, but the first three that we talked about are the most common contingencies. And really important to know, this is your way to back out of the sale.
Any one of these things is a way for you to get out of buying a house.
And your loan contingency. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this means that you can walk away from the house if your loan does not go through.
Right.
And that's, you don't get the loan, you probably can't afford to buy the house.
Can't buy that house.
Now, the contingencies usually run appraisal contingency 14 to 17 days, I would say is pretty standard. The loan contingency up to 21 days. Every lender is different. They'll give you a good guideline on how long you need.
Well, and ideally, this hopefully you're not in a scenario where you get a surprise here. If you've done all of your due diligence, you've been working with a realtor that you trust, you're on top of your paperwork, you've got all that in. I would hate to be surprised at this point in the process.
Absolutely. So, your loan contingency, once your loan has been approved, you're pretty much all set to remove your contingencies. And at that point, you are committed to buying the house, and you do risk losing your deposit if after that point you just choose to walk away for no reason. There are a few safety nets, but again, that would be something you'd really want to talk to your wonderful realtor about.
I got your buyer's tip. Don't skimp on inspections. You want to get your house inspected. You want to get every inch of it inspected. Do a whole house sewer and termite inspection. If you have a pool, you got a jacuzzi, you have a garage, get it inspected.
All right. I have Zoe Schulman from Stewart Title in studio.
Hey, Zoe.
Woo, woo, woo. Zoe, thank you so much for coming today.
You're so very welcome.
This
My
is amazing.
pleasure.
Oh,
Thanks,
I'm so
Zoe.
happy you're here.
Okay, so we're here. You're here to talk to us about title insurance. What is title insurance?
Title insurance insures the homeowner against liens and judgments that might affect their property and create a loss for them. So title insurance prevents that.
Just before the interview, we were talking about how title insurance, there's kind of like two paths for it. There's me as the buyer, there's the information I receive, and then there's the seller and the information that they receive. And right now, we're talking to buyers more than anything. But the sorts of things that could hold up a title from a seller's perspective, just so we have a super rough idea, would you mind listing just a couple of those things?
Sure, no problem at all. The main issue that I would say would be fraud. Mm-hmm. And the types of fraud that we see are fake signatures. Mm-hmm. So what we do to ensure that it's not a fake signature is we make sure that we know who the notary is, who notarized it, and we'll sometimes compare. We'll compare a signature from a driver's license to the actual grant deed. Mm-hmm. We'll actually take care of that for you. And one of the issues that has come up quite frequently as of late is elder abuse, where children or neighbors try to sell a property from someone who's older who may be mentally incapacitated. Mm-hmm. We'll ask for a doctor's note. We'll make sure that they really want to sell that house.
And so it seems like title insurance, the main thing here is protecting, I would say, protecting the buyer from all of those different causes of fraud.
Correct. Absolutely. So what title insurance, that I want to say quickly, title insurance is very different from other types of insurance. it goes backwards. It does the history of the property to make sure that there's no defects that are going to affect you, like taxes, liens and judgments. And we clear it all up for the new buyer with escrow and with the seller and with the realtor. We take care of all of this. It's a one-time transaction. You pay a one-time fee for that title policy that's going to be issued. You do not do it next year, the year after, like property and casualty or health insurance. So it's a different type of insurance. It's like an indemnity against defects on your property.
And this is done, let's say I'm buying a house. This is done one time for me, but if I turn around and sell the house, we have to do it again.
You'll have to do it again. And also, if you refinance your property, there will be another title insurance policy issued, but it's not for you. It's not a homeowner's policy. It's a lender's policy. And why that's important, every lender wants to be the first lien holder on that property. And the reason for that is if you don't pay your mortgage, they want to be able to foreclose on you.
They want to be first in line to any debt.
Exactly.
I actually had this happen to me years and years and years ago. We had a landlord. I was renting. We had a landlord. They took our damage deposit. We ended up going to court to try and get the money back. We won, and we were super excited. Yay, we put a lien against the house to get our money that was legally entitled to us back. But she didn't pay her bills. The house went into foreclosure. We did not get our money back because the lender
Absolutely
had the first
true.
Right of the cash.
Yes. And they want to be in that first position always so that they can do that.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so we talked about escrow, and once escrow's opened, then I start dealing with title insurance.
Correct.
What happens then? Let's say my escrow's open, and then I get a hold of you, and you're talking to me about title insurance. The minutia, what happens then?
Okay, so what happens when escrow opens is they phoned or faxed. Now they email the title department to open a preliminary title report. That report searches and examines everything from the past, and everything comes up. How much property taxes you owe, whether or not they're current or delinquent. How many open trust deeds you have on your house, which are mortgages or lines of credit. And if there are any other issues, such as easements, and most easements generally are for sewers and public utilities, generally speaking. Sometimes they're for a driveway for egress and ingress.
I was going to say, I'm going through this right now, and I've had a few other properties in the last few years that there's a shared driveway. So one property has an easement for use of the driveway.
Exactly. So it's a really great thing to work with a title person or title company that you know and can trust. We will actually plot the easements on a map so that new home buyer can see where the easement exists and to see if that might create a problem later on.
And an easement, just again, for people who haven't done this before, an easement is something that typically you're going to have to get permission to be able to use. For instance, at the back of my property, I have power lines.
Right.
And one of the things that we've talked about a little bit is how I'm in the process of converting my garage into an accessory dwelling unit. And for me to do that, I had to contact the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, and I had to receive an easement because of the distance of that building from power lines. And so easement is a word that doesn't show up anywhere else.
This is true.
And so an easement is when you need permission to do something with your land.
Great. That's perfect.
Very good.
That's a really
very good, Tanner.
I'm proud of you.
Oh man,
that was
feeling
excellent.
good.
That's better than the way I would have said it.
Thanks.
Wow,
very good, Tanner.
You want to be a title rep?
Yeah. maybe by the end of this.
Zoe, as escrow is chugging along and the preliminary title report is issued, everybody's had a look at it, everything looks good to go. How do you work with escrow at the end of the transaction? And can you kind of explain what the process is to actually close, where the person buying now owns the house?
Yes. So escrow is a third party, a disinterested party that is between everything in the transaction. We handle the close in California. It's not done this way in every state of the union, but California uses escrow companies to close. We make sure that everything has been cleaned up on the title report so that there's no issues that might pop up. So the day before closing, when escrow contacts us and says, we've got the money has been wired to us, we're wiring it to you, and it is $678,033 to the exact penny, so we know what to look for when that money is wired to us. We check to see if we have received it, and they set it up for recording. We go to the county recorder's office, and we actually record the documents, which will include the grant deed, and if there is a loan, a deed of trust.
And as soon as that is recorded, that is when we are officially closed. The buyer now owns the house and gets the keys.
Yes.
And it's not done that way in every state.
No, it's not. Especially in attorney states, it's completely different because they handle it. So we take care of that. So we work with escrow and the lender. We get the money. We make sure the money is there. Then we also disperse the money. So once we're paid, we then make the payoffs based on something called a demand letter from the old lender. So let's say that homeowner owed $310,000. We pay off the old loan, and the new loan gets put on the new property, and a policy of title insurance is issued after the close.
So you really facilitate a hugely important part of the transaction, which is the cash.
Oh, which is the money.
That's
it's the money.
thing.
Well, it's the money, and it's also how the title that you own that property.
That you have proof. Now, are things a little bit easier now because everything's electronic?
I think it is. I think it is. I've been doing this, as you know, for over 30 years, and I remember when it was just reams and reams of paperwork and mail and letters, and nothing moved this quickly, and it took a long, long time to get everything straightened out. It really did. And we didn't have, as I was saying, we search backwards. It's computerized. It's digital now. We used to go through books and microfiche to make sure that we had all the documentation and to make sure that everything's been cleared. And it took manpower and time.
What do you feel like, or let me ask you this. What is the thing that you want people to know the most about title insurance?
That it's very important in every sale transaction. That if you do not, in California, if you're working with a real estate agent, which everybody should at all times, because it's a very litigious society, and if you don't, you can be in really big trouble. It's standard on a CAR form, on a California Association of Realtors form, that title insurance is provided. Without it, if you let's say your uncle wants to sell you their house and you just do it yourself and you record documents, you have no idea what could be lurking within the property in terms of liens and judgments.
And if you don't get title insurance, that now becomes your problem.
That's right. That's right. And
title insurance, very important.
It really is an important thing. And I know that not everybody understands that, but it really is an important process of the whole transaction. And this way, phew, I did everything right. I crossed my T's, I dotted my I's, I have title insurance, I have homeowner's insurance. I can breathe, and this is my home.
Zoe, if someone had more questions about title insurance or they wanted to talk to you specifically on title insurance for their purchase, how would they get a hold of you?
Very simple. They can email me at Zoe for Title, and my name is spelled ZOE at ZOE, the number 4, title.com. Real simple.
Zoe, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. We all know a lot more about title.
Yeah, I feel educated now about title insurance.
Good. It's a necessary thing, especially in Southern California.
Well, and if we're going to have someone in the studio to talk about title, we're going to get the best. Zoe, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Zoe.
you. Have a wonderful day.
Here's another buyer's tip. Read the paperwork. Understand what you're signing. If you don't understand something, ask questions. I understand there is a ton of paperwork in this process, but sit down, really try and focus and understand what you're signing on all of the documents throughout a transaction. So if you're looking at loan documents, ask your lender. If you're looking at escrow paperwork and you don't understand, call escrow, ask questions. And if your realtor is sending you forms, all kinds of things, we do a lot of paperwork. Make sure if you don't understand something, just ask everybody to clarify. You can never ask too many questions in an escrow. All right, we have 10 ways to help choose an offer price. Super fun. Okay, this is super, super obvious. I've said it before.
Number 1.
I'll say it again. Ask your realtor.
Get your realtor's advice. Here's the thing is, you know what? You're not out buying and selling houses all day, every day. Why would you think that you can just come up with this number out of nowhere? Trust your realtor. It's the easiest thing to do.
We are qualified professionals.
Yeah. We meaning Sarah. I am not qualified whatsoever. But there were a couple times, I mean, like we mentioned before, Sarah helped me buy my house. And there were times where you would say, hey, this is how I would put in this offer and this number and this is why. And it's so incredibly helpful and useful.
Absolutely. Number 2, we're going to look at the 5 houses in your neighborhood that have recently sold for comparable values. And we usually don't go back farther than 6 months. So we'll pull those out. We'll look at them. We'll compare them based on square footage, based on condition, based on layout. And that will help us decide on a value. It's
also kind of a cool way to sort of look at the trend of what's going on in that neighborhood.
Absolutely. Okay. Next, we have how long has the house been on the market?
Ooh, yeah.
This is a big one. So if you find a house, it's absolutely spectacular. You love it. You're going to place an offer, but you noticed it's been on the market for a couple months or even in this market over 3 weeks, then that's a sign that it might be priced a little high.
As a single man in his late 30s, I feel personally attacked. I've been on the market for quite a while now. I feel like my price is appropriate.
There's a lot of bidders, Tanner, but you haven't accepted an offer yet.
I've entertained a few offers.
Okay, this is something that I need to talk about, and this does definitely happen in my industry. Is the listing agent known to underprice houses?
Why would someone do this?
Because they want to get a bidding war. They want the house to sell super quickly, and they want a whole bunch of people to run in and go, oh my gosh, this is the best house I have seen in my price point. Holy cow, this is better than anything else I'm seeing. I want it. I love it. I need it. I will pay a lot of money for it.
This is great for sellers, terrible for buyers.
Absolutely. So there are agents notorious for underpricing, and your agent should give you a good guide. Look, we always want to be respectful and professional, and I try never, ever, ever to say anything negative about another realtor. Mm-hmm. However, I can guide my clients and say, look, these listings tend to go $100,000 over ask. Mm-hmm. So just prepare for that. If you love this house, you want to place an offer, this agent generally gets multiple offers. We're going to need to come in really strong. Are you okay with that?
Well, and that's also such an LA real estate thing.
Absolutely.
Being able to drum up enough demand to get into a bidding war for a house. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to me, especially as a first-time buyer, but there are people who come in with like half cash and all cash offers here in Los Angeles on a house in the Valley.
We see a lot of cash. It's crazy right now. I don't know where the money's coming from, but I want to make friends.
Yeah, I don't know where it's coming from, but I want to find out.
Okay, how busy is the open house?
This is a big one.
Yeah, if you go the first weekend a house is on the market and there are 50 people in that open house, chances are it's going to go for multiple offers over ask. Mm-hmm. So that's a good way to know kind of offer price. So if it looks like it's too good to be true, it's too cheap to be true.
But also when you show up and you see 50, go ahead and walk through the house. Go ahead and go through there, even just check out the house just for your own information.
And it might still be a good buy. Mm-hmm. It might go above ask and the list price might just be way too low. So we always say that you can't underprice a house in LA in our market.
I want to ask you about this next one because we're talking about the house being listed as a, quote, hot home on the internet. How do they even figure that out?
It's all algorithms. So they will track how many people are going to that listing on the internet, clicking it, saving it as their favorite. So we know there's all these house websites that lots of people use different ones. And it'll say this is a hot home. And usually that means a lot of people have saved it as a favorite.
Popular on the internet.
Yeah. And that, again, usually predicts that the house is going to go for above ask.
Sure. A lot of demand. I get that.
Or the condition of the interior. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something that great realtors will do when they're working for the listing, the seller, is they stage the house.
So that the staging,
means,
yes.
Absolutely. If you walk into a house and you think, wow, it feels so good, it's probably been freshly painted, staged with furniture that's never been used. Things have been strategically placed around the house to make it look bigger. And we go as far as to putting cookies in the oven to make the house smell like fresh baked cookies.
You people.
That's
tricky. Terrible.
It's tricky business. So when you walk into a house and it feels like you were on a movie set,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful and it's perfect.
It's staging. It's like these people going around and they set this up just to try to trick buyers into thinking the house is more amazing than it might actually be.
And people buy a house based on a feeling.
Oh, yeah.
So a good realtor will
emotional
work with the
purchase.
seller to try and create that feeling. So just be aware of that. If you walk into a house and you think right away, I love this house, this is the perfect house, is it because you're falling in love with the staging and the interior and the smell and the music?
That interior design. This next one is a big one. We're talking about inventory, other houses in the area, number of houses for sale at a given time. I remember one of the things, this was interesting to me, we were talking about how inventory is a little down in the winters because people don't want to move while their kids are in school.
Right. So we get the most inventory in the summer, mostly because people want to move when the kids are out of school. And inventory really drives price. If there's a lot of houses for sale in a small area, people take longer to make a decision on whether they want to buy it. So a lot of inventory, that generally means there might be less bidding wars. Now, it doesn't turn into a buyer's market until an area has 6 months of inventory.
6 months of inventory.
That's
what does that
a lot.
mean?
So, for example, in Mount Washington, we average about, let's say, 45 houses a month.
For
30
sold
to 45.
at,
listed. So 30 to 45 house sales a month approximately. And for it to turn into a buyer's month, we need to times that by 6. That would have to be the active inventory. So it shows how, if there's 30 houses sold in a month and there's 45 houses on the market, that means we have 1.5 months of inventory.
I mean, you're talking about almost 300 houses being sold in 1 month?
Being listed.
Listed.
So having that inventory, then it would become a buyer's market.
Okay.
So in many areas of Los Angeles right now, we're very seller heavy. The market is shifting. But we're not near a buyer's market yet.
Okay, that makes sense. Also talking about square footage, bedroom count, size of the house. That seems to me like the basics on putting together an offer.
Super basics. Well, this is an offer price. So we know that a 2-bedroom is not as worth as much as a 3-bedroom. We know if it only has 1 bathroom, it's not going to be priced as much as a house with 2 bathrooms. So when you're comparing houses and trying to decide on an offer price, those are the things you want to keep in mind. Hey, this house across the street sold for $800,000, but that has an extra bathroom and it also has a bigger yard and it has more square footage. So that's really how you determine purchase price.
Well, and some of these are also like deal breakers. Like I wasn't even going to look at a house unless it had 2 full baths.
Right. And important to know your deal breaker. Tanner.
Sara.
It's a pleasure to spend my afternoons with you.
You know what? They're not deal breakers for me, and I like being here with you and CP, our producer, and our engineer, Mike DeLay, in there.
Thank you so much for listening to the LA Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sara Skelton. I'm here with
Tanner Thomason.
Dun, 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 dun. The next episode, we're going to be talking with Scott Groves all about the loan process once you hit escrow.
Oh, gosh, that is a complicated one.
Pa-pow! Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, C-Pizzle, can I have a little more water per pourvoir? Per pourvoir.